Okay, what to do if you can't afford insolvency? Chris Worden, Director First. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy our content, please subscribe, like the video, give us a comment. Right, I speak to hundreds of directors every month, okay? And a good number of those directors actually needs to place their business into liquidation. I'll tell you the common story. They owe HMRC, they owe a bounce back loan, they owe a C-bills loan, they owe suppliers. Their revenues have recently dropped, but their outgoings are still the same. Causes insolvency, okay? Now, the problem with insolvency for a lot of directors is there's a cost to it, okay? And you know on my videos, I'm very upfront with these type of things. If you're a small business in the UK looking to liquidate, you're going to be charged £4,000 to £5,000 plus VAT to close the company down, okay? So it's going to be 4,800 or 6,000 quid. How can you pay for that? Well, if there's money in the business account, you can use the money in the business account to pay the liquidator's fees. You may be able to pay it by selling some assets off at a fair value to cover the liquidator's costs. But if there's no cash in the bank, there's no assets, and that happens regularly, it would fall on the director to liquidate the business by a voluntary liquidation. Now, the thing is, a lot of directors have not got a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of right now. They've been trying to prop up their business over the last few months. There's just no cash in the till. So they're struggling to pay the liquidator's fees. Now, if you literally cannot afford to pay a liquidator's fees, what are your options? Well, another option is going to be compulsory liquidation. And that's where one of your creditors forces your limited company into liquidation. It's not ideal. If you can afford a liquidator's fees, and you don't have to use us, there's some great companies out there, you should try and get the liquidator's fees to get the business into liquidation. But if you're one of those people who literally cannot do that, you're having sleepless nights, you're struggling to feed your kids, well, what are the options? Compulsory liquidation is where you get wound up by one of your creditors. You get a day in court, and if you can't pay the debt, your company gets forcibly wound up, okay? Now, if that happens, instead of finding a liquidator that you choose, you will get a letter from the official receiver, and you'll have to do an interview. And the official receiver is going to ask you, what's the reason for the failure of your company? And you'll tell them. Now, the outcome's the same, because whether you do it voluntarily or compulsory, the business is in liquidation, the unsecured debts will go into the liquidation and be written off. The consequences can be more severe in a compulsory liquidation because you've really buried your head in the sand. You've not gone voluntary. You should, the minute you become insolvent, you can't afford to pay your debts when they fall due, liabilities are more than the debts. The onus is on you to seek insolvency advice and liquidate voluntarily. But not everybody can do that. And if you sit down with the official receiver and you tell them exactly what's gone on, and as long as it's a story of, you've tried your best, it's just not worked out, there's very little going to happen. It's highly unlikely you're going to get disqualified or you're going to be made personally liable for the debts. Now, before you go rushing into a compulsory liquidation, I still suggest you take some advice. We'll give you some advice. There's loads of firms out there who'll chat through the specifics of your situation. But if you cannot afford to liquidate, you need to consider compulsory liquidation. And perhaps that's a case of speaking to your creditors going, listen, I can't afford a liquidator's fees. Please, will you put my company out of its misery and force me into liquidation? Now, I hope you found that video useful. Just before I go on to that, if you are one of the few people who are watching this video that haven't taken a bounce back loan or a C-bills, or you've paid off your C-bills or you've paid off your bounce back loan, and you've got some debts and you can't afford to liquidate, what you may want to consider is striking the company off at Companies House, okay? You're not really meant to do that if you've got debts, but if you was to file a DSO1 form at Companies House and then write to the creditors that you owe money to, saying, listen, I'm filing a DSO1 form to strike the company off. I'm inviting you to wind me up. I literally have no cash. I've got no assets. Your creditor who you owe money to may actually start the compulsory liquidation process for you. But it's highly likely that they'll think, well, actually, these people haven't got a pot to you-know-what in or a window to throw it out of, and they'll allow the strike-off to happen. You can't do that if you've still got an outstanding bounce-back loan or C-bills, though. So, I hope you found this video useful. Please keep following us for more handy tips and insider tricks for UK insolvency. Thanks for your time.